What would you do if I told you that your credit score is actually lower than it really is? So we've all heard it before. You've gone online, you've gone to your credit card website, and you say, hey, my credit score is 800. And then I go to the next steps and I go to the lender, someone like Bruce Dodd from ChattMortgage, and find out that, oh, it's actually not 800. Welcome to the Chattanooga Real Estate Pulse. We're going to be talking about credit scores today, and really, more importantly, what are the truths? What are the truths? We brought on Bruce Dodd from ChattMortgage. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, appreciate being here.
Yeah.
Credit scores. One of the things to keep in mind with credit scores is the credit score that you're looking at more than likely is going to be derived from a credit card algorithm, a credit card scoring method. Anything you can look at is probably through your credit card company, and it's going to be based on a credit card score, which is the most forgiving score. There's essentially three scores. You have credit card scores, automobile loan scores, and mortgage scores.
And they're not the same?
No.
Right, of course.
No, because obviously they're looking at different critical points of data to do. So a credit score, ultimately, the higher your score is, the less likely statistically lenders think you are to ever be late on a loan. Mm-hmm. So the lower your score is, the more likely. The higher your score, the more likely, the less likely you are to be late. If you think about credit scores were developed by the credit card industry. So they're highly weighted toward credit card usage.
Got it. So what I found in looking up scores, there's different models that are used, like you mentioned, for different types of things. And so one truth is that the credit score that the credit card companies use is much higher than what it is for a mortgage.
Typically, for most people, yes.
Right. So we want to keep that in mind. And every time credit's pulled for a mortgage, they're going to pull from the three. What is it? TransUnion, Experian, and what's the third one?
You got Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. And the score that each lender has to use is the middle score. Yeah,
right?
you can throw out the high score, throw out the low score.
Yeah. So you also got to keep in mind when you go onto your app or your creditwatchesyou.com or your credit card site, whatever it may be, generally they're only giving you one. So that can also give you a false feeling of what's actually happening. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So when it comes to credit scores, we can recognize that they're not equal across the board in all different scenarios. If you're shopping for a car, if you're shopping for furniture, if you're shopping for a credit card, if you're shopping for a boat, like it's going to be different than a mortgage. Knowing that it's going to be different, the best way to figure out what my score is for a mortgage is...
Well, I mean, the best thing is you talk to a mortgage lender like me and they pull your credit, tell you what your score is. Yeah. I mean, that's the absolute.
Now, is it going to hurt my credit?
It is.
Okay. Now, so define hurt.
It's a 3-point charge for credit.
Okay.
It's a 3-point charge. You can have multiple lenders look at your credit within a 2-week period, and it's like one looked at it.
Okay.
But it's a 3-point charge to credit. There is one. It's like anything in life. If you don't pay for it, probably ain't really that useful. If you pay for it, it's probably more accurate. You can go to myfico.com.
Yes.
It's a monthly charge. It's going to be closer. It'll give you credit card scores, automobile scores, and mortgage scores.
Yeah.
It's going to be closer. It's not going to be precise.
Yeah. I'd say it's pretty accurate or very close to, because when he says it's not precise, it depends on the day too. Things can change day by day.
Right.
But oftentimes in the past, I subscribed to that MyFICO app, and I've been pleasantly surprised that when you pull my credit and when the app tells me the credit, it's been within a point or so.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it also tells me the different models on, like, if I were applying for a car loan, if I were applying for a credit card. And there are some scenarios where I'm like, wow, feeling really good about myself. And then I click the mortgage and I was like, oh, brought down back to earth, back to reality.
The other thing is MyFICO will give you a dashboard, and that's going to tell you what you can do.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, but for most things, if we look at credit scores, how to impact your credit score, the number one thing that drives it is how much available credit do I have? Why is that? Well, the more available credit you have, i.e. revolving debt credit cards, the more limit you haven't used, the less likely you are to run into a problem, because you could just borrow a little more money.
I understand.
So having plenty of limit left, and one of the things that I think people aren't aware of is credit is a snapshot in time. Typically, those your lenders are going to report to credit on specific timelines. I talk to people every day who say, I pay all my credit cards off. Well, I pulled their credit. Doesn't look that way on their credit report because it's a snapshot in time. So one of the strategies you can use is whatever payment you're going to make, just do it a couple weeks earlier so that it actually hits, it's received, it's reduced those balances. Then when they report, you get the benefit of that payment. For way too many people, they pay it on its due date a couple days after or whatever it is.
And it doesn't report to the next cycle.
It doesn't report to the next cycle, so you don't get those points, that point benefit.
Got it. So let's talk benchmarks here. And I know there's a bunch of benchmarks to say if you're in this window of rate, or I'm sorry, if you're in this window of credit score, you will likely get this rate bracket and so on and so on. For time's sake, let's just hit the bottom and the top. Like, what's the minimum score that you can get a loan on, generally speaking? And then what's the highest score where you're going to get the best rate?
Yeah, so it depends on what kind of loan you're looking at.
Okay.
However, typically I would say you need to be kind of in the 600s.
Okay.
There are programs that say they'll go below that, but for most people, I would say you need to be target to be in the low 600s.
And for the ones that say they will go below that, from our experience, what I've seen, it's like, yes, we can do a loan under 600, but you have to check off all these other boxes. And generally, you can't check off all those boxes if your score's that low.
That's right. And the rate's going to be significantly higher.
So don't get hooked by the people out there just advertising we can do the lowest score. You're going to end up probably just paying for a credit pool.
Well, and then and you're going to be disappointed. So typically, to get in the game at all, you need to be low 600s. For most of the first-time homebuyer programs, where you're going to get some money for closing, in Tennessee, THDA is a great one. You're typically going to need to be north of 640.
Okay.
For a conventional loan, 700.
Okay.
For the best possible pricing, north of 780.
780. And I learned a long time ago when I was looking, you did a loan for us and for me and my wife, and we were like, okay, our score is here. And I wanted to be one of those people that like nailed it over 800. And you were like, Doug, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, does it? As long as you're north of 780?
Above a certain point, you're awesome. And then you're just more awesome. So,
but it doesn't make the rate any different.
Really, 780 is
780 is the bar.
Right? Yeah, there's what's called loan level price adjustments. Most of them go away once you kind of get over that 780.
Yeah. Now, a couple pro tips that I want to share, and maybe you have some to add on this and some comments on this, but a couple years ago, my wife and I, we were buying a house and we wanted to buy some rental property. And I was really playing the game of like, how do I get my credit in primo shape to get ahead of things? And I did it with a lender. Bruce helped me along the way. And so, but there are a couple tips to help get your score moving in the right direction. I think I was an anomaly because it was like right at 100 points that the score went up in 30 days, which is generally unheard of, right? But there were a couple tips that I learned that I want to share with. So one of the first things is maybe you can help me with the terminology here, but if you have a credit card that you haven't used in a while, and I don't know if it's like 9 months, 6 months, a year, but if you have a credit card sitting in a drawer somewhere, maybe it's like an old Gap card that you haven't used in forever. If you walk in the store and buy a pair of socks, and then literally return them right after you bought them. Like, I'd like to buy this pair of socks. Well, now I'd like to return this pair of socks. That acts as a credit and a debit, and it says you're using that credit, correct?
Yeah. So you want to have a little bit of usage, buy a tank of gas, that sort of thing.
Pair of socks, tank of gas, whatever it may be.
Absolutely.
But instantaneously, actually, I did it this last month too. I actually keep up with the rolling track of my credit cards of like, hey, I haven't used this in a year. And I went and used it. And with the MyFICO app, I saw that it went in the right direction about 30 days later. So just using an old credit card to put a tank of gas on, that's going to improve your credit, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why is that?
FICO got smile on that for whatever reason. I guess because you show you're using that credit, so it's credit that you have access to. Some stuff, I'm not really sure. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
but it is what it is. We got to play by their rules.
Right.
Another tip that I learned was at the time when we were making a move, we had just recently bought a house and we were buying a rental property. And so that's why bought a house. We'd bought a bunch of new furniture, took advantage of the 0% interest financing. But what I learned is you walk into a furniture store and let's say you're going to spend $10,000 on furniture and They have this great, couple years, no interest program. I took advantage of it. What I didn't know at the time is I should have asked for a higher limit than what they actually gave me, because most of the time they just give you the limit of whatever you need. And so if I could go back in the time, had I asked for a higher level of credit than what I actually needed, that would have showed that I'm not using all of the usage, I guess you could say, right?
So it's really just what percentages you typically want to owe, if you can, for max scores. You want to have about 75% of your lines left, or you've used.
So if I have a $10,000 credit limit, I want to stay around $2,500.
That's right.
Of my balance.
That's
max.
Right. That's right. And so there's two ways you can drive that. One is paying it down. Mm-hmm. The other is asking for line increases.
Yes, because that'll increase. Does that affect your credit if you ask for the line increase?
It's gonna improve it once they grant it, because now I have more availability.
Yeah, so there's a tip there to raise your credit limits when the credit cards are less.
And if it's a card you're using on a regular basis, you've handled it well, they want you to spend more money, you'll see those things granted on a pretty regular basis.
Yeah. Well, another pro tip tied into this that I thought was pretty interesting is balance transfers. Mm-hmm. So in that particular case, I was on the loan, my wife was not going to be on the loan, but I didn't want to let go of this 0% interest money that I had. And so we went on to nerdwallet.com based on your advice, and we found credit card companies that allow balance transfers at 0% interest for 12, 24 months, whatever it may be. And I had no idea that I could actually when you're doing a balance transfer, it doesn't have to be from you to you. I transferred it from me to my wife, and it looked as if I paid off my credit card. She took on more debt at 0% interest, but then it showed on my score that I paid it off, and that's what mattered at the time, because in that particular scenario, my wife and I agreed we're going to leverage my credit for purchasing.
Shifted those over.
Yeah.
And another thing you can do, we talked about this a little bit before we came on the air here, is the authorized user thing.
Okay, so tell them about that.
Okay, so for example, you can be an authorized user on a credit card. Let's say you're a younger person, you don't have that much credit. Let's say mom and dad have a card they've had for 20 years. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a couple things with credit scores. One is, how long have I had credit? So, for example, my children are on my American Express card. I've had it since 1989 because I'm old. And so my kids have a longer credit history than they do a history on the earth.
Right.
So that's a hack that'll work. So if you can get added on as an authorized user, you get the benefit of that increased credit limits. You obviously don't want to do it. Somebody's got a maxed out card they paid late and haven't had very long.
Right.
But let's say you've got a person credit card 5-10 years. They make you an authorized user on that. The bureaus pick that up as you've had that account for that long.
And it makes that younger person look as if they're making those payments, and then it reports positively. Yeah,
so now you have a longer credit history. So a lot of people have access to that. I see a lot of couples that are recently married, and one will have much better credit score than the other because they've had credit longer. It's just obviously
tied their
make
credit
them
together.
Authorized users on all those cards.
And they'll benefit from it.
That's right.
That's awesome. So there are a ton of tips out there. Bruce has helped me personally and many of our clients out there. So if you are trying to figure out how do I get my credit to a certain level, or you just want to know what it is because you're headed down the path of maybe making a move or maybe buying that first investment property, give Bruce Dodd a call at ChattMortgage here in Chattanooga, and he'll take care of you just like he has us.
Yeah, just don't get caught up in analysis paralysis. Let's just look at it. Stop looking at all the stuff. Let's just take a look at it, see where you are, see what you want to do, see how things look.
Do it with the source versus trying to figure out the sources on your own.
That's right.
Totally agree. Well, guys, thank you for watching so much. I hope this was helpful for you. If you have any other tips, comment below. Let us know exactly what you're doing, and we'll chime in and we'll tell you what we think on it as well. Make sure you subscribe, hit the bell, give us the likes up. We appreciate you watching the Chattanooga Real Estate Pulse.